The current working definition of anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Today we're going to discuss the history of anti-Semitism dating back to medieval times and working our way to the present. We will then go on to learn how Jewish people of today feel about anti-Semitism and if it has made them alter their behaviors as modern Jewish people of today. Although the term anti-Semitism was first popularized in 1879 by German journalist Wilhelm Marr, isn't that foreshadowing and ironic? The history of anti-Semitism goes back much further. Currently, the Jewish calendar says we're in the year 5779, and there are records dating back to 30 BCE that list acts and feelings of anti-Semitism. Hostility against Jews has been connected to ancient empires of Babylonia, Greece, and Rome. Jews were often criticized and persecuted due to their efforts to remain a separate cultural group rather than taking on the religious and social customs of their conquerors. Jews openly shared their opinions on other faiths and customs and religious beliefs while also not speaking the language of their conquerors. Many times, Jews stubbornly spoke their native tongue and practiced their religion openly, even though they knew it wasn't wise to do so publicly under their conquerors. Over the years, as the rise of Christianity spread, so did anti-Semitism throughout Europe. Early Christians condemned Judaism in a bid to gain more converts. They did so by accusing Jews of completely ridiculous acts, such as blood libel, which is the kidnapping and murder of Christian children to use their blood to make Passover bread. Which, by the way, Passover bread is disgusting on its own. We don't need blood to make it more gross. Throughout medieval Europe, religious attitudes were reflected in economic, social, and political life. Throughout medieval Europe, Jews were denied citizenship and the rights that came with it. They were also barred from holding government positions, serving in the military, and were excluded from professional and trade unions. In many European cities, Jews were confined to certain neighborhoods called ghettos. Some countries also required Jews to distinguish themselves from Christians with a yellow badge worn on their garment or a special hat called a Judenhut. In 1096, Knights of the First Crusade unleashed a wave of anti-Semitic violence in France and the Holy Roman Empire, including massacres in modern-day Germany and France. In the 12th century, blood libel made its debut, and Jews became the scapegoat for any children who were murdered or went missing. Due to the fact that early Christianity did not permit money lending for interest and Jews were barred from so many other professions, many became prominent in banking and money lending. This resulted in economic resentment, which forced the expulsion of Jews from several European countries, including Germany, France, Spain, and Portugal. Only Jews who had converted to Christianity were allowed to remain, and those suspected of continuing to practice Judaism faced persecution in the Spanish Inquisition. Jews were only tolerated when needed. Jews were kept in certain countries to perform economic functions that were vital to trade and commerce. Moneylending and trading became Jews' profession. One of the main reasons Spain expelled the Jews in 1492 is due to the fact that Jews kept growing into a large part of society. Jews were philosophers, physicians, poets, and writers, as well as leaders in the cultural and intellectual communities shared with Christians and Muslims in Spain. After their expulsion from Spain, many Jews ended up in modern-day Turkey and Germany, but still did not receive citizenship and gain rights throughout much of Western Europe until the late 1700s and 1800s. So what is a pogrom? A pogrom is a violent anti-Jewish riot typically perpetrated by a local non-Jewish population. Many times neighbors of the same Jews that were being killed were the ones perpetrating pogroms. These pogroms were often encouraged and aided by the government and police forces. Although popularized in the mid to late 1800s, pogroms were also popular in the early 1900s during the Russian Revolution, with an estimated 1,326 pogroms occurring during those 3 years. It is estimated that in those 3 years, about 100,000 Jews were killed.
Mit Unterschied nur etwas. etwas, nämlich die Erkenntnis, dass man den Folgen dieses Verbrechens nur dann wird begegnen können, wenn man aus den Fehlern der Vergangenheit lernen will, um aus ihrer Kenntnis heraus sich die Voraussetzungen zu schaffen für die Überwindung des Volkes und damit aber die Schwächung des gesamten Volkes, damit die Verelendung dieses Volkes und damit den Verrat gerade an der Klasse auf einer Ebene.
Adolf Hitler was one of the most famous and horrible figures our world has ever seen. He and the Nazis rose to power in Germany in the 1930s on a platform of German nationalism, racial purity, and global expansion. Hitler blamed the Jews for the country's defeat in World War I and for the social and economic hardships that followed. When Hitler started the process of Aryanization, flushing out of those who were racially impure, Jews were dismissed from their positions in the government, their businesses were liquidated, and Jewish professionals such as doctors and lawyers were stripped of their clients. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 introduced many anti-Semitic policies and outlined the definition of who was Jewish based on ancestry. Nazi propagandists had swayed the German public into believing that Jews were a separate race. According to the Nuremberg Laws, Jews were no longer German citizens and had no right to vote. On November 9th and 10th of 1938, Jews became the targets of a state-sponsored campaign of street violence known as Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. In 2 days, more than 250 synagogues across the Reich were burned and 7,000 Jewish businesses looted. The morning after Kristallnacht, 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps. After Kristallnacht, conditions for Jews in Nazi Germany became progressively worse as Hitler and the Nazis began to implement their plan to exterminate the Jewish people, which they refer to as the final solution to the Jewish problem. Between the years of 1939 and 1945, the Nazis would use mass killing centers called concentration camps to carry out the systematic murder of roughly 6 million European Jewish men, women, and children in what would become known as the Holocaust, one of the most famous genocides the world has ever seen. Acts of anti-Semitism are still rampant today. Most recently, the U.S. watched in horror as a gunman in Pittsburgh took the lives of 11 Jewish men and women in a synagogue. We see it when people draw swastikas on the walls of Jewish community centers and synagogues. And even overseas, we see it with the rising tensions between Israel and its Palestinian neighbors.